The last day to register to vote for this election is next Wednesday, the 12th. That'll be the last day that they can register. So if you're not registered, the new law does require you to, if you've moved anywhere within Missouri and you're a registered voter, you can still vote that day. This is only for new voters to the state of Missouri. You can change your address on Election Day. You have to do that in our office, though. That's going to be something new. Like if you've moved from county to county and you need to update your address on Election Day, you have to do it in our office only. You cannot go to a polling place and do it. It has to be done here.
Already getting tired of us here talking about it yet? Tomorrow is the deadline. Tomorrow is the deadline to register to vote. And I don't mean to poke fun. It's just, as one of the things that we've learned here recently is, folks, yes, I know I'm familiar with the voter registration law. I'm familiar with the voter ID law. I know. Who doesn't have a photo ID? One of the things that we are learning is, did you check? As a matter of fact, we got some great stories. We started talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and there was a moment of panic, apparently, throughout mid-Missouri when we said, okay, but is your photo ID up to date? Yes, we all have a photo ID, but is it up to date? Something we need to be aware of. Good morning. Welcome to the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I'm Branden Rathert. Special guest co-host Steve Spellman joining us this morning.
Hey, good morning, Brandon.
Glad you could be here. Steve Spellman is very active in the community, has done things. He writes a lot for the Missourian, kind of like the token conservative.
I fill a role. Yeah, there's a need out there.
Hey,
yeah.
We need somebody to write from an intelligent point of view. Oh, we know. How about this Steve Spellman guy? So he writes a lot for the Missourian. There's John Marsh. Producer Hannah is here.
Hello.
Brian Hausworth is running around. My name is Branden Rathert. If there's something we can do for you, 874-9390, 874-9390. Tomorrow is the deadline to register to vote. We heard from Steve Korsmeyer. He is the Cole County Clerk. You need to go to the office. And if you have any doubts, if you're just unsure, the best thing, and I know people like Brianna Lennon and them are going to get mad at me, but just call the office. And I know they're busy as it is anyway, but call.
You know that, Brandon, you're right on the mark about that. Not just call, but I would say one more thing, and that is to be sure. And they would, they're definitely going to get an influx of people today. But also, it's not bad to go in. If you really want to be sure, you want to go in, because postmarks and I've had a lot of problems with mailing letters. I mean,
the mail in general, just delivery times.
It's been a big disappointment. I've had a lot of issues. I love the mail service, but for some reason I've had some issues, and I know a lot of people have as well. So if you really want to be sure, the best thing to do would be to take 5 minutes to go down, in and out, and get it done. Unless there's another way, especially we have a lot of older people that don't have computers. But tomorrow is the deadline. You have today and tomorrow, so at least you've got some time to get it done.
Issues with the mail, it's enough to make you go postal.
I'll give you a few points. I'll give you a few points there. Side note, I got my gas tax refund for the receipts, and I was surprised. The only reason I mentioned that is because I submitted the stuff prior to the deadline, the end of September, and it only took me a week to get my check for $3.12.
The real question is, do you feel like it was worth it? All of the struggle that you went through to get your $3.
Yeah, and actually it was $15.30. It was so a lot of it was principle of the thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm the same guy.
Oh, you really stuck it to the man.
I showed them. Like, hey, all that new resurfacing on 63, don't thank me. I didn't pay for it. I got my $15. Yeah, I think it was to keep the receipts. The biggest part was just filling out the paperwork. It was, I don't know, maybe an hour, but the satisfaction. You can't put a price on satisfaction, man.
I almost would have just handed you $20 to not have to listen to you whine about it anymore.
But it didn't take long. I submitted it. Less than a week later, I had my check for $15.30. Tomorrow is the deadline to get registered to vote. And, of course, very, very all the elections are important, but then getting out and voting. And this is interesting, and I know, Steve, you're tied into a lot of the local stuff. Heard from a couple of different candidates in Boone County specifically. Dustin Stanton, who is the treasurer in Boone County, appointed by Governor Mike Parson. He had a fundraiser last night in Hallsville. Was there talking to him, also talking to Connie Leopard, who is a candidate for Boone County presiding commissioner. And we talk about how if you were to look at an election map of the state of Missouri, every single county in the state of Missouri is red. Every single one of them except for 3. Jackson County, City of St. Louis, not St. Louis County, City of St. Louis, and Boone County. Blue, blue, blue.
In City of Kansas City, too, which was technically, but you're absolutely right. And what's crazy about that is almost all those rural counties used to be blue 25 to 30 years ago.
Yeah, old time rural Missouri Democrats. My wife's grandmother grew over by Troy, Missouri, by Wentzville. Working class lady, very conservative in her living and lifestyle and so forth. Always vote Democrat because, well, that's the working man's party. Is pro the big labor and all that stuff.
That's right.
And boy, that really changed. I remember, I guess Obama and Hillary, when they were in the primary in 2008, she looked at my father-in-law like, what in the world has happened here? Like, that's when it finally dawned on him. And I think many Missourians that used to be Dem are like, what's happened to this national party? And you see like Cori Bush going through with the issues that she's talking about around Missouri. And it's like more and more Democrats are like, what in the world has happened here?
Boone County. So I've heard from Connie Leopard and Dustin Stanton that maybe Boone County is when they break it down by precincts, maybe not quite as blue as we think it is. It's tough being an intelligent person in Boone County when you're up against a bunch of Democrats. But it is important to vote. And here's the thing, and I cannot figure this one out. We talk about get out and vote, get out and vote, get out and vote. In like August, everybody's talking about this U.S. Senate race. Eric Greitens going to be. And we still had less than 1 out of every 5 voters showed up to vote. We look at our municipal elections. Now, this past April election with Randy Minshew running for mayor against Barbara Buffalo, a little bit higher, but I think it was like 14% turnout. And I don't understand. We talk and how passionate we are. But people don't turn out to vote. Shimon Jones, who's running for Boone County Recorder of Deeds, telling us about the importance of voting.
A lot of people are complaining, and the only way that you can really do something is to get out there and vote. The last time I spoke to the group of black church leaders here in Columbia, I said, if you have a church van, please get them out to vote. Help them, help be the solution, because we need to get them out there to vote. Get them registered. You have church vans, do it.
Get them registered and get them to vote. Now, Shimon Jones, she's interesting. She's a Republican, and she's black, running in Boone County. And I mentioned that because she mentions it there, and this is what she hears in the community. And I don't understand. Do you have any thoughts as to why we all these people we talk about, we got to get out and vote, and we're turning out 1 in every 5 voters?
I think, your interview with Mike Murphy, was it yesterday, from Como Buzz, that Democrats are more organized. That's been a thing. And for left-leaning, more collectivist-type folks, government is more important to them. It's a more important aspect of their life. They want to do more things through government. Charity needs to be government. Healthcare needs to be government. Everything needs to be. Schools need to be all government. And so this is the biggest thing in life. Whereas conservatives, like, our family, faith, other things. Government's a thing. It's important. But I think the emphasis in life, I think of left-leaning people in general. And so Democrats' election, it's like a holiday sort of thing.
Steve brings up such a good point there about, and the Democrats do, to their credit, you give them a lot of credit, in the unions. The unions go door to door on behalf of Democrat politicians, and they're very effective, and they have every right to do that. There's no question about that. But, I view it as this, that getting out to vote, and what the bite that Brandon played there with Shimon, I think, is very bipartisan or nonpartisan, because the church people, she doesn't know how they're going to vote. They very well could vote straight Democratic, but she does want them to vote. But I guess what surprises me is we have a Democratic county clerk, a Republican Secretary of State, politically they don't share a lot in common, but what they do both say all the time is get people to vote. They come on the show all the time, and yet the numbers don't seem to go up. And I know I just don't understand.
Marsh, any thoughts as to why here's what I keep thinking. I remember the old Toby Keith song, a little less talk and a lot more action. Seriously. Mm-hmm. But any thoughts as to why you think, like, and I'm not saying it's just Republicans that don't turn out to vote, because a lot of us, we sure do talk a lot. But we're not showing it at the polls. Any thoughts as to why such a low voter turnout?
That was a watershed. John hit it on the head. That was a watershed. That was right after Ferguson. There's no doubt those rural areas definitely started to trend red, and Donald Trump won the state by 19 to 20 points, and he basically carried. I know Roy Blunt's people cringe when I say this, but the reality is Roy Blunt squeaked by in that Senate race by maybe 2 points over Jason Kander. Without Donald Trump on the ballot, Roy Blunt probably loses that seat. And Greitens won very, very close. I mean, Trump's coattails in 2016 had a huge impact, and the state has grown more red since that time. There's no doubt about it. But that was a big deal because Jay Nixon, all the statewide office holders, exception of one, Peter Kinder, at that point were all Democrat.
Monday Night Football last night. Troy Aikman. Everybody saw the bad call. Chiefs defensive lineman Chris Jones goes in. He's trying to sack the quarterback for the Raiders, David Carr, and he gets called for, what is it, roughing? And then Troy Aikman afterwards. I love this call by Aikman.
His body's there. It's just where it is. It's too much. I mean, my hope is the competition committee looks at this in the next set of meetings and, we take the dresses off.
Oh! Is that sexist, Hannah? He's implying that they're chicks. I hope the competition committee take those dresses off. Quit being soft.
So I actually heard him say this last night and went, "Ooh, that's not gonna age well for him."
Little locker room humor there.
Little locker room humor. It was very cool. Chiefs pick up a great win last night. Travis Kelce, 4 touchdown receptions. Chiefs win 4-1 in the AFC West. Coming up 7:10, folks. We're set.
I don't have anything to share about that at this time. I just don't have anything to share. I don't have anything to preview for you about his schedule this weekend. I'm just saying I don't have anything to preview for you today. I don't have anything specific to add. I don't have any particular examples for you at this time, so I'm not going to comment. So I'm not going to get ahead of the conversations that are happening.
All right, you know how that is. Karine Jean-Pierre, White House quote, I'm not going to answer. I don't have any info for it. And that is par for the course we've been highlighting over the past several days. A lot of the Democrats that won't answer questions, specifically when it comes to illegal immigration and all the drugs and fentanyl that comes through our secure border. And that's getting us into today's daily D.C. rundown here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Let's start in Columbus, Ohio. First debate between Democratic U.S. Representative Tim Ryan and Republican J.D. Vance descended, as they often do, into attacks, with the candidates for Ohio's open U.S. Senate seat accusing each other of being responsible for job losses and putting party loyalty ahead of voters' needs. Maybe perhaps a knockout moment last night. J.D. Vance.
As an exception.
Look, I've always believed in reasonable exceptions. This is a misrepresentation of my view, but let's hear it from me, not from Congressman Ryan. I absolutely think the 10-year-old girl, the case that we've, of course, heard a lot about, an incredibly tragic situation. I mean, look, I've got a 9-year-old baby girl at home. I cannot imagine what that's like for the girl, for her family. God forbid something like that would happen. I have said repeatedly on the record that I think that girl should be able to get an abortion if she and her family so choose to do so. But let's talk about that case. Because why was a 10-year-old girl raped in our community, raped in our state in the first place? The thing the media and Congressman Ryan, they talk about this all the time. The thing they never mentioned is that poor girl was raped by an illegal alien.
Knockout punch. Woo! J.D. Vance on Tim Ryan. Now, here's why this matters. If you're newer to talk radio, you're a regretful Biden voter, and you're sitting around here in mid-Missouri, why am I paying so much for gas and all these groceries and all this? Here's why that matters. Here's why we cover the Ohio Senate race, because control of the Senate, it hangs in the balance, and this is a very tight race. Latest polling as of this morning, right now there's no polling post last night's debate, but latest polling has been showing J.D. Vance, for what polls are worth, leads that race over Tim Ryan by a couple of points. Here's another thing that Steph and I have pointed out from time to time. We immediately took a hit on the worldwide stage following the tragic events of January the 20th of 2021. We talk about how we look poor on a worldwide stage. We don't have any bravado. There's no oomph, and that's important when you look at what's happening with China, when you look at what's happening with Russia. When was the last time you were told to cover up your head with your hands and hide under a school desk? Not since the Cold War era. And now Biden's out saying, hey, we're closer to nuclear war than we've ever been. I don't know if that's true or not, but on a worldwide stage, we look bad. Now the U.S. international outlook has undergone a major shift. This from the Associated Press this morning. Polls are showing, yeah, we don't feel real good about where we are. 2 years into the Biden administration, here's some numbers. 60% of U.S. adults say relations with adversaries will get worse. I hate to say, but back when Trump was president, I don't play that here, but I'm going to play that here. That's up from 26% 4 years ago. And I hate to say we told you so we'll just leave it at duh. Christopher Arps, chrisarps.com. He's going to be joining us in a few minutes. A couple of big events coming up here in mid-Missouri as it relates to politics, if you're looking for ways to get involved. Plus, he's going to be telling us about efforts underway nationwide to allow non-citizens and illegal immigrants to vote in your elections. He's here 5 minutes from now.
Hi, I'm Becky Arps, and I am so excited that you get to experience a bit of the thoughts I hear every single day. Enjoy.
Chris. CHRIS.
Something that the progressive left is advocating for, and they're really swimming uphill on this. We've done mounds and mounds of polling on this, and it is supported by women, by males, by conservatives, by liberals, Republicans, and Democrats, all across the board on our polling. We've done polling on this for the last couple of years. It shows all these groups are against having non-citizens vote.
It's Christopher Arps on the road talking about voting and voting rights and who should and shouldn't be voting. Chris, welcome into the show. What were you talking about there?
Good morning, everyone. I was in Columbus, Ohio, and the Columbus, Ohio has on their ballot this year a thing called Issue 2, which is to amend the state constitution to say only United States citizens can vote. And so we were having a press conference with the Secretary of State, Frank LaRose, and a couple of the state representatives that sponsored this measure. And so we were just trying to get the word out on that last week.
So
can you hear that?
The crackling in the background?
No, there's music going on. My phone's playing, but you can't hear it. So it's distracting me, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
Chris told me before we came on air that he couldn't figure out how to turn the music off.
I was doing something while you were calling me, and it's whatever. Okay, let's go.
Just close out of whatever app is playing.
Brandon can surely sympathize, right? Technology, man.
Hey, if it's inconvenient for you, we can just call back later and hang out then while you're
about 9:30.
Yeah, we'll let you finish your best of Henry Mancini jazz album, and we'll call you back. Welcome into the show. Wake Up Mid Missouri. I'm Branden Rathert, special guest co-host Steve Spellman this morning. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning.
Producer Hannah is here.
Good morning.
There's John Marsh. Brian Hausworth is running around. By the way, coming up 7:10, two big things happening last night. The Chiefs game, why folks are talking about the game nationwide. We'll do that at 7:10. One of the other things coming up, excited to be chatting with Bryan McGraw. He is the school superintendent in Jefferson City. This on the heels. Columbia City schools having their first meeting last night. Well, they have clamped down. I might be exaggerating a little bit. They've clamped down on freedom of speech at the school board meetings. I might be exaggerating, and I'll own it. Christopher Arps, who does a lot of work on as it relates to voting. Let me ask you: is people that say, "Hey, yeah, even non-citizens, illegal immigrants, they should vote too." What is their argument for allowing illegal immigrants to vote?
Here's the argument that they use. They say it's basically a no taxation without representation argument. They say that these folks that are here legally with green cards, they're paying taxes, they're sending their kids to schools. Because of that, they should be able to vote. And, of course, we applaud them for coming to this country legally, doing everything they need to do to get to the point where they can become citizens. But I and millions of other Americans across the country believe that you should not be allowed to vote in any election, from president down to dog catcher, unless you become a citizen first. Seems like a no-brainer.
That's what I would think, too. But as Steve and I, or at least I can't vouch for Steve here, but I think I've got what I think is an interesting question. You talk about no taxation without representation. Is that the biggest argument you hear when people say, yes, they should be allowed to vote? They pay taxes, too. Is there some credibility to that argument? If you were in a debate and you go into a courthouse downtown and here's your team, you're debating against illegals being able to vote and U.S. citizens, and you've got the other team that they're going to argue why they should, and they said right before it starts, you got to switch sides. Chris, now you've got to argue for why illegals should be allowed to vote.
Well, I'll tell you why. Here's the argument. First, I'd like to give the argument why the taxation argument is not a good argument. And I made this point at the press conference in Columbus. I said, look, while I was here in Columbus, I stayed in a hotel. I had to pay hotel taxes. We went to a local restaurant. I paid local sales taxes. Because I paid taxes because I was temporarily in Columbus, Ohio, should that give me the right to vote? No, it doesn't. And because these people are here in this country temporarily, some of them don't want to become citizens. Some of them want to live and go to school here and go back home. They shouldn't be able to vote either.
That's a great point, Chris. This is Steve. When President Trump was kind of tweaking the census a few years ago, to even ask the question of people, are you a U.S. citizen? And I thought, well, I thought that would already be on there. I'm surprised it wasn't. People got up in arms. But, to your point, you're visiting another state. But, if I were visiting, say, France or Mexico or Australia or wherever, I would have no presumption to be able to vote in their elections. I mean, I unless I was, became a citizen, like I want to permanently move here and this is my new home and I register to vote and whatever rules they have in their culture and so forth. But to be visiting a place and not a citizen, I would have no presumption to be able to vote somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Canada. We can't go to Canada and vote if we live there temporarily. We can't go to Mexico and vote if we live there temporarily. Now, I will say this. There are some countries in Europe and I don't know which ones offhand, that actually do allow non-citizens to vote.
That's their problem.
In their country for municipal elections. And that's the argument that some of the proponents of this here in the United States use. Well, other countries allow foreigners to vote into their elections. But people have given examples where they lived temporarily somewhere and voted, and we should be able to do that here. No.
All right. Hey, Christopher Arps, ChrisArps.com is joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and News Radio 104.5 KWOS. Just getting this from Fox News.
Oh.
Check this out. Former Democratic presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard announces that she is leaving the Democratic Party.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Hold on, wait a minute. I got a yawn.
Now we're just waiting for Manchin and Mark Kelly to announce they're leaving. Denouncing the organization as an elitist cabal, Gabbard attacked the institution in a minute-long video posted to her Twitter account. Gabbard did not announce plans to join the Republican Party or adopt any other political affiliation.
And in other news, water is wet. I think Tulsi Gabbard left the Democratic Party a long time ago. I think the Democratic Party didn't consider her a member in good standing for several years now. So it's an interesting announcement. But come on, guys, are you shocked?
Here's some of her announcement.
I can no longer remain in today's Democratic Party that's under the complete control of an elitist cabal of warmongers who are driven by cowardly wokeness, who divide us by racializing every issue and stoking anti-white racism, who actively work to undermine our God-given freedoms that are enshrined in our Constitution, who are hostile to people of faith and spirituality, who demonize the police but protect criminals at the expense of law-abiding Americans, who believe in open borders, who weaponize the national security state to go after their political opponents, and above all, who are dragging us ever closer to nuclear war. Now, I believe in a government that's of the people, by the people, and for the people. Unfortunately, today's Democratic Party does not. Instead, it stands for a government that is of, by, and for the powerful elite. Now, I'm calling on my fellow common sense, independent-minded Democrats to join me in leaving the Democratic Party. If you can no longer stomach the direction that the so-called woke Democratic Party ideologues are taking our country, then I invite you to join me.
You're right.
Me.
It's good stuff, but no shocker. Okay.
But I'll tell you what is big there is she's calling on other Democrats. She's calling on other Democrats to leave the party. I think that's impactful, whether or not it'll happen. And I'm hoping that people like Joe Manchin hears her, maybe Mark Kelly from Arizona. And how about all these Democrats who are distancing themselves from Joe Biden? Joe Biden offering to come and campaign on their campaigns with him. And they're like, nah, I'm good, Joe. We don't need you.
Here's what I see here, Brandon. I'm seeing a little 2024 politics coming to play here. Not that she's going to run for president as Republican 2024. Maybe she's angling to be Donald Trump's running mate. What do you think about that? That'd be a pretty good ticket there,
Tulsi
wouldn't it?
Gabbard, I don't think Trump's going to run in 2024, first of all. I really don't. I think he's going to. And here's the thing, and I love Trump. You know how much. Did I ever tell you that story, Hannah, about 2015?
Oh, good God. Yes.
So.
You've mentioned it a couple times.
Have I mentioned that once or twice over the past 7-8 years?
Yeah, it's been a while.
I think he's got less political clout now. He's got it within his own party. But listen, we got to get outside of the Republican Party, and I really believe this, and don't be mad at me. There's a lot of regretful Biden voters. There's a lot of politically unhoused, a lot of people that I hate to say in the middle. They don't like Democrats. We heard what Tulsi Gabbard just said. She's urging other Democrats to leave the party. There's a lot of people that don't like this Democrat stuff. I agree with everything Tulsi Gabbard said. But Trump's not their answer. They're like, yeah, we don't want that either. And I believe that. So I don't think Trump would run in 2024. And if he did run in 2024, frankly, I don't think he would be successful, even in the primary. I really don't believe that, as much as I want it to be. I want that to happen. We were just sharing poll numbers earlier today. One of the things Stephanie and I have always been big on. Since the tragic events of January the 20th, of 2021, since the tragic events that unfolded that day, we've always argued we look weaker on a worldwide stage. The world looks at us and points fingers like chubby Branden in the second grade who can't play kickball very, and they point and they laugh and tease. That's what America, they're like a chubby Branden in the second grade who can't play kickball. That's how they view us now, and that's happened since Trump has left office. So you have all these people that are regretful Biden voters, but I really just don't think Trump would be the guy in 2024. But I like where your head's at. Trump, Gabbard, 2024.
Donald Trump is running for president in 2024. This is Donald Trump's nomination to lose. It's his if he wants it. And one, he's going to continue to run with all of these indictments and all of these court actions against him. He's going to continue to run because as long as he runs for office, then he can always point to they're attacking me because I am running for president. That's why they're indicting me. Look, the running for office, I think he wants to be president again also, but I think it also kind of shields him in a sense from all of these lawsuits and all of this legal action against him that he can claim they're doing it because it's strictly politics. He's running, Brandon. I will bet you a steak dinner at that famous steakhouse we always talk about that he is running.
So he runs.
It's on record.
Running and running successfully are two way different things.
Oh, now you want to throw
Christopher.
Now you want to throw a little caveat in there.
So, yeah, he might run, but you know what? Eric Greitens ran for Senate in Missouri. So what? That's how I would tab that. Yeah.
Right now, Brandon, who in the Republican Party can beat Donald Trump in a Republican primary?
I would seriously look at somebody like DeSantis who loses somebody. He's got the chops. Hey, we're strong. We're firm on our beliefs. Less crazy.
DeSantis would never challenge Trump.
You don't think so?
No, that would be foolish because once Trump gives you a nickname and as Trump has put that around your neck, you're done.
DeSantis, the guy,
a bright of a future.
The guy who had the marbles to send illegal immigrants to a sanctuary city in Martha's Vineyard. You don't think he's got the gumption to say, you know what? Screw politics, screw Trump. I'm going to run. You don't think he would do that?
No, because he stole the idea from the Texas and Arizona governors. So no, it wasn't anything original about that. He just sent them to a different place.
Right.
Nothing original about sending illegals up north.
Ladies. Let's remember we're all friends
you want to
here.
Take it outside, Brandon?
Let's.
Arps, you could take him.
That is a great point about that. DeSantis. He's in there, all-star conservative nationally, but a distant second. Trump has a whole gravity to him. I mean, there's whatever he wants to throw around, and this teaser stuff. I might have to run all his rallies. Well, he's probably gonna, but it's the suspense. He likes the suspense.
Exactly.
That's part of it too.
He likes the suspense. He would run. Do you think he would be successful?
I do.
You see, you spend too much time in the echo chamber, Chris. You need to.
Different question.
Hey, hold on. If you can hold for 5 minutes, you've got a big event coming up.
2024. This is Donald Trump's nomination to lose. It's his if he wants it. And one, he's going to continue to run with all of these indictments, all of these court actions.
You know what that is?
Who is that brilliant guy? Oh, my God. You can always point to this.
He's in the echo chamber.
I was like, did I say that at the press conference last week?
That's great.
What I said first.
Christopher Arps in the echo chamber. By the way, via text 874-9390, you're getting a lot of folks agreeing with you about Trump 2024. I just don't see. I'm not real sure that he would run. I would really, as much as I would want him to win, I just don't think it would happen. And so my contention to Chris is you got to get out of the echo chamber.
Running for president, that's why.
I love you, man.
Brandon, that's why you're the talk show host and I'm the political expert, and that's why we keep those roles separate.
That's right, and that's why you travel the country and people pay you very good money to talk about this stuff. And here I am on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Hey, and you have another big event here in the final minute or so. You've got a big event coming up in St. Louis this weekend. As folks here in Mid-Missouri, this is something we can take part in. What are you doing?
Actually, yeah. St. Louis County Central Committee is having their annual Lincoln Reagan Day dinner this Saturday, October 15th. It's at the River City Casino Hotel Ballroom. The featured speaker this year is Winsome Sears. She is the Lieutenant Governor of Virginia. She is the first African-American woman elected statewide there in Virginia. She's a very dynamic speaker. And, last year we had Burgess Owens, Congressman, as a keynote speaker. So Renee Artman, who is our chair, is doing a fantastic job. So if you're in St. Louis and you want to hear a very dynamic speaker this Saturday, come on out. Winsome Sears.
And it's cool to get involved. It's showing up at this stuff. Steve and I were recently at the Boone County GOP chili supper.
Right, just last week.
Yeah, and it's cool whether it's local, national stuff like happening this weekend in St. Louis with Chris Arps. More info at chrisarps.com. When's the next time we can catch you on the Newsmax TV?
Thursday, 5:30, 6, and 7.
Thursday, 5:30, 6, and 7. Look for our good friend Christopher Arps, chrisarps.com. We love you, man.
Love you guys. Thanks.
All right. We'll see you coming up 8:10. Local candidates. We're going to drill down on some of these some more.
I think you got to focus on the issues that reach out and touch everybody. And right now, I think that's the economy. James Carville, Bill Clinton's buddy, he's famous for saying it's the economy, stupid. Well, we're going to reinvigorate that because that's exactly what it is. It's the economy. And it affects everybody, regardless of whatever walk of life you come through. Gas prices, more than doubled after President Trump left office. And now they came back down, 50 cents, and all of a sudden the Democrats are taking victory laps. I'm like, you caused a problem. It went up $2.50 and it comes down 50 cents, and all of a sudden you're having a party. That's not how it works.
And that's why I would recommend you vote for Jim Musgraves, State Rep 50th District, seat currently held by Sarah Walsh.
Jim Musgraves is a good American, period. I mean, he's a patriotic dude. He's got a strong message. I mean, right there is example, slice of life. Every time I've seen or heard the guy, that's the message he's on.
He's sharp. He's served our country, and I have a special affinity for people that have served our country. We highlight that. We were chatting with him recently. Tomorrow is the deadline to register to vote. You can get on for probably the best thing to do. Get on the websites: Cole County, Callaway County, Montauk County, Boone County, and Marsh. I would almost feel a little. I would almost feel bad, like if I were to call Steve at the Cole County Clerk's office, Steve Korsmeyer. Hey, Steve, sorry to bother you, man. I know you're really busy right now, but I just want to make sure my voter info is all up to date. But it's important we do that.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right, and they want to do that. They want to help the employees at the Boone County Clerk's office and the Cole County Clerk, and I'm sure for all the others, and I've worked with a lot of them, they want to do that because they want to make sure your information is accurate. It only takes a couple minutes. It really does. You can be in and out, but when in doubt, I'd recommend going down there. There are other ways to do it, but, Secretary of State and I enjoyed you guys' interview with Christopher Arps. Mr. Ashcroft points out something that we should probably mention again. For qualifications to vote, to be registered, you have to be at least 18 years to vote, 18 years old. You must be a U.S. citizen. That is required. And you also must be a resident of Missouri. So those are the three qualifications.
Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am Branden Rathert, joined by Mr. Brian Hausworth. Good to see you, bud.
Good to see you, sir. Thank you.
It's good seeing you, too, man. There's producer Hannah. Hannah's good seeing you, too.
I was about to say.
I know.
Good morning.
Good morning. Special guest co-host Steve Spellman joining us.
Good morning, folks.
And it's good to see him, too.
Good
Absolutely.
to see you.
Thanks a lot. Hannah.
Oh, no. I told Steve came in this morning singing that song, and I said,
I'll do my Sinatra voice later.
I said, no, please don't remind Brandon of that song. It just finally died down.
Oh, of the Hannah song?
Yeah.
Yeah, we all have our songs here on the show, and of course we used to do the Hannah song, and she didn't like it anymore, and out of respect, we quit doing it. Anybody see the Chiefs game last night? My goodness. So a couple of things. Number one, people talking about us here in Missouri nationally. How dare you put the Chiefs on Columbus Day on Monday Night Football? My goodness. First of all, does anybody know? And maybe the Chiefs haven't done themselves any favors. Two things. Number one, now I'm not a Native American, probably like most of us, got some Native American blood. The name, the term, Chiefs, Cowboys, Indians, Redskins, doesn't offend me, but I might have a different point of view if I were a Chief or a Native American or a Cowboy. I don't know. But the Chiefs they're actually named after a dude who helped bring the team to Missouri, and I can't remember the guy's name, but they were named after a guy who was actually instrumental, and his nickname was Chief, and the name will come to me in a minute.
Is it Bartle?
Bartles!
Bartle Hall, yeah. His nickname, yeah, in Bartle Hall, of course, in Kansas City. But you're right. I do think that there is people do think that it is an Indian chief it was named after. That said, they do have that. Is it the chant? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, that tomahawk chop.
Yeah, and some people are offended by that as well. There are some who are. Yes. they've changed that. Also, and Brandon's right. There were some people who were offended. The Chiefs were playing on Columbus Day. I can't remember the name of the coach. NBA coach just went off last night after it had nothing to do with the basketball game. You may have seen it, Steve, but he was saying Christopher Columbus was a murderer, and that got a ton. Of course, ESPN gave him a lot of airtime. But so, yeah, there was a couple different things there.
Yeah, well, down in Florida, I mean, your old neck of the woods, Brandon, and the Seminoles, I think they have like an arrangement with like the local tribe. Like there's
They pay the Seminoles money to use that name, and the Seminoles have no problem with FSU football.
And, is the tomahawk chop, are fans like being derogatory? I think it's like they're having fun. I think there's a respectful thing, and, the woke culture doesn't stand for that anymore.
Especially when money's involved. Oh, wait, you're going to pay us? Yeah, we're not offended. But you're right. I think it's that, and I believe this on a whole lot of levels, and we'll move on because there's other things to be upset about this morning that happened in the Chiefs game last night. Hannah's ears even perked up watching the game last night.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is we have the audio of what made her ears perk up a little bit. But there's so many things, and I really believe this about a lot of folks in politics, even outside of politics. They don't know they're supposed to be offended, but other people, it's like, I didn't know in the 8th grade, I didn't know I was supposed to wear parachute pants. But all of a sudden, everybody started wearing parachute pants. I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to wear parachute pants too. And I think it's the same thing when people get... with my clip-on earrings and my rat tail haircut. I was a lady killer in the 8th grade. My God. But people go, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to be mad about this. I'm supposed to be offended. I'm supposed to be upset over what happened 300 years ago, and I'm supposed to judge Steve Spellman today on something that Ann says because Steve is responsible because of the color of his skin, and now I don't like Steve because something his ancestors did 300 years ago. That's called presentism, and it happens with so many of these things. People get upset today about, I can't believe this happened 250 years ago. I can't believe it happened either, but I'm not responsible, and let's move on, and let's move forward, and let's all get together and quit bringing up the color of skin and stuff like that.
There's good and bad to history. Columbus, you look back at his thing, and part of it was beneficial. Part of it was he thought he was in India. That's why he called them Indians. He really wasn't in Asia. They were trying to spread Christianity just like many cultures try to spread their ideas. They think their ideas are good. I mean, there was exploitation. There was some Indians were nice, some weren't. Diseases, they didn't even know about that stuff, about germs, and it killed off a bunch of people. It's tough.
There was an episode, too, and it's a huge issue to the Italian-American communities as well.
Yeah, because Columbus was Italian.
It's a really big deal, especially down on the Hill in St. Louis and New Jersey, New York.
Chicago.
There was Chicago, huge parade. There was actually an episode on the Sopranos about 20 years ago. I don't know if people remember it, but it was about Christopher Columbus Park, and they were way ahead of their time on what they're talking about. It was a whole episode about people being offended by Christopher Columbus, and Tony Soprano himself had to get involved because some of his guys wanted to take action. In their words.
Via text, Kevin says, and I think it was an Indian guy who drew the logo for the Chiefs. And that reminds me, because I do want to get into the thing that offended Hannah last night. And I'm teasing.
It didn't offend me,
but your ears perked up.
I definitely had a moment of, that's not going to end well for him.
And we have the audio, 28 days until the election. Friday, we played on Friday, we'll drop some comedy on a Feel Good Friday. We did this comedy segment about this guy. He talks about if you have a Russian accent, and having a Russian accent all of a sudden makes you sound much tougher. And after the show Friday, somebody said something to me about it, and I thought, yeah, I agree with you, but I dare not say anything. Here's the comedy segment.
I got over my fear because I learned a trick, and I use this trick all the time. Whenever I think someone might try to beat me up or mug me, I fake a Russian accent.
Right?
It's genius. Be walking home late at night, two dangerous-looking guys walk up to me like, hey, man, you know what neighborhood you're in? You think this bad neighborhood?
So he's right, but the point, somebody said, Okay, so he's appropriating another culture. So if you were to, and you almost hear him get a little bit into, hey, man, you know what you're doing in his neighborhood? He almost got into that street dialect, whatever you want to call it. And you can't do that. You're not supposed to do that. But he got into the Russian dialect. Nobody's offended. So why are people get offended if you affect that street accent? Well, you're imitating a black person, or you're doing a Chinese intonation to your voice, or you're imitating an Indian. You can't do that. Then how come you can imitate a Russian and nobody's mad? Nobody's that, and I believe really because for progressives and idiots, it's the color of your skin. You're not mad if you're imitating a Russian, but if you're imitating somebody who has, and by the way, we are all people of color, okay? I have color. Steve has color. Ann has color. We're all people of color. But if it's a brown color, black color, whatever, well, you can't imitate them. Why? That doesn't make any sense. 874-9390. Chuck, welcome into the show. What's on your mind?
Well, let me just start by saying if everyone was clear, we would still be pointing out abnormalities in everybody's anatomy that we could see. But I don't know why people are up in arms about teams using Native Americans or whatever for a mascot. It's something you put pride in. It's something you take pride in. And it's like, I think the world is just upset if we unite over anything. So they always demonize or throw negative shade on anything that we want to unite around.
Party poopers are like babysitters. The babysitter will quelch a good time real quick. Chuck, we appreciate you being a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri on 93.9 The Eagle and News Radio 104.5 KWOS AM 950. H. Bartle. That was the guy. He was the mayor of Kansas City back in the 60s, and everybody called him Chief. Well, H. Bartle was largely responsible for getting the Chiefs out of Texas and here to Missouri, and that's why they're called the Chiefs. Last night, Monday Night Football, folks were upset that of all days, the Chiefs would be featured on Monday Night Football. Here's the thing that happened by the way, Chiefs win, incredibly exciting game, bad penalty call, and Troy Aikman addressed that. And one of the things he said made Hannah's ears perk up.
His body's there. It's just where it is too much. I mean, my hope is the competition committee looks at this in the next set of meetings and, we take the dresses off.
We take the dresses off. He's saying man up.
Basically.
Quit being a wuss. Is that what he's saying?
Basically. But I heard that last night and immediately told my fiance, I was like, uh-oh, he's going to get some flack for that.
Right? And it's not that you are offended.
No.
But because we know that everybody's so delicate. People are looking for reasons.
I wasn't offended, but I knew somebody was going to be.
That's one of the things we love about producer Hannah, not easily offended. If I want to offend her, I have to try really hard, Steve. Coming up 5 minutes from now, we are going to do What's Hot with Hannah. What's smoking today?
Well, my story might offend you because it talks about farts.
Oh, man.
Sorry.
All right. That's coming up. Good morning, 7:25-ish, which means it's
7:26.
time for What's Hot with Hannah.
Now, Brandon, I'm going to need you to be an adult about this story.
All right.
Okay?
Okay.
Because it involves flatulence and burping
All right.
and cows.
Okay. I'm listening. Not really. No. What do you got?
So New Zealand has shared their latest plan to combat the climate crisis, and it involves taxing farmers because their cows burp and pee and do things to hurt the climate. Right? Can you believe that? This is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
You can't
in my
make
life.
it up anymore.
A lot of people don't realize that New Zealand is basically the global headquarters for like the beef and dairy industries. Like they do a lot of research and a lot of business with dairy cattle and beef cattle. And they have, I think, twice as many cows as they have residents in their country. They have 5 million people in New Zealand and 10 million cows and 26 million sheep. So I don't know, are they going to have somebody sit on the farm and count every time the cows burp? Or what? But they're basically telling farmers, like, by 2025, this tax is going to be in place.
Somebody's standing there with a clicker. Yep. Oh, there's one. Got you too.
Yeah, they're telling farmers basically, hey, we're going to, tax all of you to account for, your contribution to climate change. But don't worry, because you can just jack up the price of your products that you're producing and it'll all be fine. That's what New Zealand is telling their farmers right now.
What if they applied that to human beings? Oh, you get taxed a lot more than that one. I tell you, the mindset of some people, just insane.
And it's not even just in the U.S. It's apparently worldwide.
We ain't the only stupid people here on this planet. Brandon, via text, interesting question. We were talking about some folks upset last night, the Kansas City Chiefs playing on Columbus Day. I can't believe you did that, the Native Americans and the Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs are named after the former mayor of Kansas City. His name was H. Roe Bartle. Now, since then, obviously, they use the Native American, the arrowhead and things like that. But the Chiefs were named for H. Roe Bartle. He was the mayor of Kansas City back in the 60s. Some of us around here might remember Marsh. He was Yeah, Bartle Hall, you're exactly right. He was instrumental in bringing the franchise, who at the time were the Dallas Texans. Great question from Brandon. Is the phrase, the pot calling the kettle black, still okay to use? Brandon? I don't know. I'm sure somebody somewhere is offended by that. Coming up, 5 minutes from now, why do we vote on some of these office holders on a county level? Steve Spellman covering that 5 minutes from now.
Nuclear war isn't the only thing on Biden's mind. He went to Maryland to give a speech about the economy. Here's how that went.
Let me start off with 2 words. Made in America.
I have 2 words for you. What the
Wow. It's easy to go after those you don't like, but for the love of God, somebody help this man, the guy who's the president of the United States.
Was that Saturday Night Live?
No, this is Stephen Colbert, who's obviously very friendly to Joe Biden. He's just like, come on, man. By the way, overall, and I don't know if it's changing dynamics or if it's because these late night talk shows. Now, see, it's okay when Stephen Colbert's talking about stuff I agree with. I agree with him there. But most of the time, not that I watch late night TV anyway, but most of the time where they're criticizing smart people and conservatives, I don't want. I get it once in a while, be even on both sides. Late night comedy show ratings are tumbling, and I don't know if it's because of, like Hannah, for example, very little network TV. Most of your stuff is streaming with the exception of maybe the Chiefs.
I mean, we get the Chiefs through YouTube TV, which isn't cable either.
Yeah.
So.
And so I don't know if it's changing dynamics because fewer and fewer people watching network TV, but ratings for late night comedy shows are down. Meanwhile, and we've covered this more than once, but about a month ago, The Late Show on Fox News, I think it's Greg Gutfeld, has a late night talk show. Number 1, set a record. First time that a cable comedy show has been number 1, and he does like Fallon and Colbert and Kimmel, except he comes at it from a different angle. And 2 things on that. Number 1, he's on at a different time slot that helps him. But what's more remarkable about that, he's on in way fewer homes. Number 1 late night comedy talk show. Welcome into the show. It's Wake Up Mid-Missouri. I am Branden Rathert. The new-ish voice you are hearing is that of Steve Spellman. Steve does a lot locally in Mid-Missouri, writes a lot for the Missouri, and then hangs out with us from time to time. It's good to see you here, man.
Yeah, great to see you.
That, of course, producer Hannah.
Hello.
Stephanie Bell back on Monday. There's Mr. John Marsh. Brian Hausworth is here, too. Coming up before 8 o'clock, I want to do this about 7:55. Our news partners at ABC 17 posted an interesting poll question. And I love when ABC 17, does this, polls for what they're worth. I like this because it's what we're saying here in Missouri. But ABC 17 had a poll. Are you interested in the next January 6th committee hearing? The poll results, I want to do that about 7:55. Here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, my name is Branden Rathert. Something we can do for you, 874-9390, 874-9390. And as we talk about the local stuff, we've been trying to really drill down on local elections in Cole County. Marsh, you were highlighting some of the bigger races we're talking about in Cole County. Mm-hmm. So 2 things reminds me. Superintendent of the Jefferson City Schools, Bryan McGraw, he joins us at 8:10. What's the future hold for Jefferson City Schools? And I'll contrast this with last night Columbia. And I hate to compare, but what about here's how they do it there? Well, what about how they're doing it here? But last night Columbia Public Schools first meeting with I call it a clamped down public comment period. And I think by design they had no real issues on the agenda last night. Where usually Columbia Public School District, they've always got something going on, but really nothing big last night. As we look at some of those new stipulations for public comments, some of it's kind of knee-jerk. I can't believe they're doing that, but The problem with the Columbia Public School District, and by the way, some incredibly fine teachers. I feel bad for a lot of teachers in the school district. I learned on the campaign trail this past year with Andrea Lisenby and Adam Burks, all these teachers that were coming out to fundraising events, almost like hiding in the corners because they have so much distaste and they've soured on the Columbia Public School District and the way it's run. And of course, the infamous incident where the school board president shut down that school board meeting, telling a parent she was being, all of a sudden the saying she was being derogatory. And she was not. So unfortunately, the Columbia Public School System, they do something like, we're going to change comment period. And on the surface, you might think, okay, nothing completely untoward there, but their reputation precedes them. And when you have the superintendent, as happened here on this show last year, the superintendent continuously denying CRT, no, I don't want, and you've got to pester him for 10 minutes to give you the truth. Your reputation precedes you. So Bryan McGraw, Superintendent JC Schools, is here. The other thing I wanted to remind you about tomorrow is the deadline to register to vote. And even if you think you're registered to vote, even if you have a picture ID, do me a favor. Pull out your purse, wallet, wherever you keep your ID. We're all doing it now. And I mentioned this because we talked about this last week, Stephanie and I did, and the number of people that reached out to us after the show and said, you know what? I freaked out when you talk about, because if you've got your photo ID, that's great. Make sure it is not expired. That will exactly. Yeah. Spellman's doing it too.
January of 26, so I'm good for the 24 election as well.
You good? Incidentally, how much does your driver's license say you weigh? Because mine says 185, and I do not weigh 185.
Slender Mr. Rathert there, yeah.
I do not.
Now, as Jay Ashcroft, the Secretary of State, will say, you know what? An ID is the fast track to getting to vote and so forth. Mm-hmm. If you don't have an ID, the very few people in society that go to vote, or it's expired, out-of-state ID, whatever the case may be, you can still vote. It's called a provisional ballot. They put it in the hopper, and then after all that election day, they count those as well. So that will be counted as well. Just it's best to have a state-issued ID or whatever the particulars are, passport. There's a list of stuff to do that, just for election integrity. But still, if you don't have that and can come up with documentation after the fact, your vote still counts. So, it's not the end of the world if it is expired, but it's a good thing just to keep up. If you're voting for these important public officials, I think just being able to identify yourself with an unexpired photo ID issued by the government, I think that's fair. That's a fair requirement.
I was hanging out with somebody, a current office holder in Boone County. His name is Dustin Stanton. Stanton, you ever brought Stanton Brothers eggs?
It's a fantastic story.
It is. Young kid. And I might be embellishing some parts. Went and asked his dad for some money. His dad said, go out and earn it. So he started picking up the eggs. And
4-H project.
4-H project. First Saturday, I think it was a snowy, cold February day. And he goes to this farm event. I think it was at the high school, Centralia High School. And he goes and didn't sell any eggs. And nobody showed up. And he was bummed out. But he kept at it. And now, man, when it comes to eggs in mid-Missouri, he's got people like Mark Zuckerberg. Him and his brothers have people like Mark Zuckerberg coming in, seeing their business model.
Yeah, he visited him a few years ago, yeah.
So when I was in school, I don't know if this stat still holds true, but the Stanton brothers had the largest free-range chicken operation in the Midwest. And I want to say they had like 25,000 chickens when I was in school. And the kids who rode the school bus that drove by the Stanton Brothers farm said it wasn't anything for the bus driver to just accidentally take out a chicken every now and then because they were free range.
They got real free range.
And, birds are about as smart as deer. They don't know to stay out of the way of the big yellow school bus. Yeah.
So Dustin Stanton, he is the Boone County Treasurer appointed by our governor, Mike Parson. I talked to Dustin a little bit last night about how his business experience has helped him as treasurer.
One thing I think is really important to take from the business world to the public sector is the idea that not every dollar is the same. So when I have dollars come into my business, I have some dedicated to payroll, some dedicated to investment, some dedicated to expense campaign, and I've taken that same concept and been able to use it in the county as well.
So I love that he's using private, real world experience in office. But I always wonder. And by the way, Dustin Stanton, please, we talk about these elections and how important it is to get involved. And then in the same breath, we tell you how we have 12% voter turnout in municipal elections. We tell you how we have maybe 1 in 5 people that showed up in August in one of the biggest, especially Senate primaries in a long time. Like 5 out of 5 people talking about that Senate race, but like 1 in 5, at least in Boone County, showing up.
Yeah, Brandon, if you run into Dustin Stanton, unassuming guy, looks like, rural guy. He's not fancy shoes, and
he looks like Mark Zuckerberg, frankly.
Yeah,
he really does.
He's not a Mitt Romney type look or anything, but he's a sharp guy. Yeah. I mean, he's got private sector experience. He's been a business owner since he was a kid, and the complex finances of the county and so forth. I talked to him about interest rate changes, and he's on the bond market doing stuff with advisors, and really taking care of business for the county. And you think of this as really a financial professional working for our public institution, our county government. And you think, well, is electing these people and going around and campaigning door to door, is that the best way of selecting somebody that's really running the finance department for the county? It's not a county commissioner. This ain't governor. They get questions like, I think the county commissioners at a public forum some time ago, somebody asked them about abortion and taxes and stuff, and they're like, well, we don't determine those things.
I'm a numbers dude.
Hey, what? Yeah, and why are these races Democrat or Republican? Is a Democrat or Republican treasurer going to make a huge difference? How about just the best person? Like the city of Columbia or probably the city of Jefferson, they've got a finance department. They hire somebody, probably a city manager or whoever, just goes out and does a job search, and it's an interview like any other professional job that there is. We don't go out and elect those people, and, should we maybe update that? And I think it takes a state constitutional amendment, but, really, recorder of deeds, just the best way of selecting that person, going around door to door and campaigning and stuff, or, just appoint somebody. County commission appoint somebody. Just hire them like any other professional in any organization.
Please put an ad on midmohires.com. Put an ad. Hey, we're looking for somebody who's good with numbers or something like that. Steve Spellman, guest co-host today. By the way, he's got a piece coming out in the Missourian. We're going to be covering that maybe 8:35 this morning. And the other thing, Marsh, I'm putting you in charge of reminding me. 8:35 this morning. Fantastic, and I always love to read Steve Spellman's pieces in the Missourian once a week.
Every couple of weeks.
Wednesday
or Thursday, yeah.
He's like the token smart guy I shouldn't say smart, the token conservative.
Got the conservative niche in the publication.
Yeah. And so his stuff is in there all the time. There was a great piece in the Jefferson City News Tribune, and it has to do with something that all of us see at cash registers. We'll cover that at 8:35. But 5 minutes from now, ABC 17, I love this. They do these local polls. Locals.
Mahomes, Kelsey, looking for his third. He found it. Touchdown.
Chiefs win. Kelsey actually ended up with 4. Leads the NFL with touchdown receptions. 7 touchdowns this year. Chiefs 4-1 in the NFC West. By the way, bad call last night. Roughing the passer, I think, was the call. And what was funny, and I think somebody's getting a talking to today, because that was an atrocious call. And I love this. Later in the game, that same ref handed. I don't know if you caught this, but he's making another call later in the game, and I don't know if he was nervous or what happened. But this is the ref. Same game, different call, but same ref.
There's no foul in the play for blocking the back. Timeout.
Is it just me?
There's no foul in the play for blocking the back. Timeout.
I don't. Hey, listen, I'm all about a man and dude being in touch with his feelings and showing emotions, but maybe not at Arrowhead Stadium here in Missouri with 80. And I don't know, maybe did he get nervous? Did anybody else catch that? Like, he seemed really, and I don't know if he's because he was so flabbergasted at his mistake of a call from earlier. I don't know what it was.
There's no foul in the play for blocking the back. Timeout.
I mean, I can't say I blame him.
Maybe he's short of breath. Maybe he's running around.
Yeah, maybe.
Stressed.
I mean, did you hear how upset the stadium was for like 10 minutes after that call?
I saw a dude on the TV. He was in the Chiefs garb. I don't know, like a couple rows back, and just throwing a temper tantrum at that poor guy.
His eyes were bugging out of his head.
Yeah. I don't blame him. Horrible call, but Chiefs win. Barely. Now 4-1 in the NFC West. Welcome to the show. Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Stephanie Bell is back on Monday. Steve Spellman, very active in the local community, writes a lot for the Columbia Missourian newspaper. He is joining us on the show. As a matter of fact, going to talk about his next piece, which comes out in the Missourian. We'll do that at 8:35. And there is a really cool, and I love this, in the Jefferson City News Tribune. Have you had a chance to see this yet, John? It's about, we all see this at the grocery store. Have you seen this yet? Yeah. And I saw it, and I'm like, my goodness. We have this little show on 93.9 The Eagle and News Radio 104.5 KWOS AM 950 at our disposal. Why have we never brought this up? And it took just a regular Joe Schmo writing a letter to the Jefferson City News Tribune. We're covering that at 8:35. Before we move forward, our news partners, ABC 17, for what polls are worth. And by the way, polls show Eric Schmidt will win the Senate race. That interesting Senate race out of Ohio, here's why it matters, because it will help Republicans get control of the Senate. Debate last night, J.D. Vance, Tim Ryan. Polls. Now, these are not post-debate polls, but polls right now showing that Vance within the margin of error, but does have a 2-point lead in the election, which is 28 days from now. ABC 17, our news partners, they did a poll. And I love when ABC 17 does this, because it's what we're thinking. It's what folks right here in Missouri are saying. And the question, very simply, are you interested in the next January 6th committee hearing? Almost 70% of respondents saying no. And I expect the October surprise will come out in the next J6 hearing, which is happening later this week. Superintendent of Jefferson City Schools, Bryan McGraw, joins us coming up at 8:10.
The last day to register to vote for this election is next Wednesday, the 12th. That'll be the last day that they can register. So if you're not registered, the new law does require you to, if you've moved anywhere within Missouri and you're a registered voter, you can still vote that day. This is only for new voters to the state of Missouri. You can change your address on Election Day. You have to do that in our office, though. That's going to be something new. Like if you've moved from county to county and you need to update your address on Election Day, you have to do it in our office only. You cannot go to a polling place and do it. It has to be done here.
That is Steve Korschmeyer, Cole County Clerk. Tomorrow is the next Wednesday. Tomorrow, last day to register to vote. And here's what I would do. And please, Steve and Brianna and other local, don't be mad, but I'm highly encouraging you just to make sure. And I bring this up. We were talking about valid photo IDs and everybody. What do you hear 99 times out of 100? Yeah, I got a photo ID. Who doesn't? But ask people what the expiration date is on that photo ID. Cause you to kind of step back.
And it's a thing to just kind of keep up in general.
Yeah.
Voting's a big deal. I mean, you're voting for public officials that are making laws for us in a couple of years. Again, the leader of the free world you're going to put in for, having an up-to-date ID. I've heard some buzz about, people having out-of-state ID and that maybe moved here recently. Yeah. They registered to vote locally like they're supposed to, but it's like, oh, well, that's something to update too. Not to blame anybody, but when you move somewhere, you're a citizen here, you register to vote. Yeah, it's probably something to do when you get a chance.
So bug your county clerk is what I'm saying. And I'm sure, listen, we voted for Steve Korschmeyer. We voted for Brianna Len. We voted for these county clerks. Call the county clerk's office if you need to. Go and see and make sure you're all up to date. And I wonder when we go in, because I'm looking at mine. Marsh, if you look at the weight on, do we have to, if I go and see Brianna Lennon in Boone County, update motor him, do I have to update my weight on there too? Is that, so actually, and my weight is actually, I ballooned up to, prior to quitting drinking, I was rolling around, almost literally, rolling around at about 230 pounds.
You getting back toward the 180?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So and then I bottomed down at about 190, and I'm kind of bounced around between you know what my driver's license says I weigh. Any guesses how it's worth?
I better not guess.
185, and I'm a little bit more than that.
Good
so,
for you.
Point is, make sure everything's up to date. Welcome into the show. Any minute here, we're going to be chatting with Bryan McGraw, Superintendent of the Jefferson City Schools. Well, it rains here in mid-Missouri. The voice you hear this morning that you may not be recognizing is that of Steve Spellman.
Good morning.
Filled in here before, does a lot, writes a lot for the Missourian, very involved with things locally. He's joining us on the show. I want to talk about a piece he's got coming out in the Missourian Thursday regarding things we vote for locally. Fascinating stuff. Stephanie Bell is back on Monday. There's Mr. Brian Houseworth.
Good to see you, and want to remind everybody, and you guys have done a great job reminding everyone about the voter registration deadline. One other very quick note, under the new law that's still kind of tied up in the courts, but it's still in effect, new no-excuse absentee voting period. You'll be able to vote absentee. You won't have to worry about excuses October 25th through November 7th, so keep that in mind. You can, basically, it's early voting, and both parties agreed to that, to come down in person to do that, so that'll give people an opportunity as well to do that.
And conservatives with busy lives, maybe take advantage of that.
Yeah, and it's for anybody, and it's they'll be open also on some weekend hours as well, on some Saturdays.
This is interesting for a couple of reasons. Christopher Arps, who's here every Tuesday, 6:35. This dude knows Missouri politics. He travels the nation. He's with Americans for Citizens Voting. Right now, he is combating some of these very far progressive cities that want to let non-citizens and illegal immigrants vote. And he is saying no. Anyhow, brought this up to him. A prominent Democrat who ran for president several years ago has dropped out of the Democrat Party. And we mentioned this, and this was just coming through from Fox News, actually, as we had Chris Arps on. How would you label Chris's reaction when we told him about this prominent Democrat ran for president several years ago, dropping out of the Democratic Party?
He started snoring really loud, oh, this is no news. Well, I think it is news. I mean, it's not a shocker.
Right. Marsh, let me ask you, what is your reaction, before we mention who it is, what is your reaction to this person dropping out of the Democrat Party? Maybe I'm overselling it. Maybe so. Tulsi Gabbard has said she's dropping out of the Democrat Party, and basically she says everything that we've been saying. She's talking about the wokeness and the racism on behalf of the party as a whole, the racist Democrats. I mean, everything that we've talked about forever since we got our political legs beneath us as kids. She's saying I'm dropping out of the Democrat Party. I think, as one of the more well-known names in the Democrat Party, as somebody who ran for president, I thought that was kind of substantial news.
I agree with you, Branden. I think it is, in that she ran for president and has gotten a lot of national attention as well. Now, I don't know is she going to become a Republican, independent? I'm a little unclear on that. This is the first I'm hearing of it, but she's I've seen her a lot of times on Fox News, and Hawaii is traditionally has been a very democratic, pretty progressive state.
Rain continuing throughout the day, next couple of days, which is good. We need the rain. So just a reminder to bring your umbrellas. Thank goodness it waited until last night's Monday Night Football game. Chiefs beating the Raiders. What a great game. I'm guessing some refs are getting a talking to today about that call last night. We're going to cover that more a little bit later. Right now, I want to welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri here on the radio station, Bryan McGraw, Superintendent, Jefferson City Schools. Mr. McGraw, welcome into the show. We are so glad that you could be with us this morning. I want to ask you this first. I heard you, I saw you a couple weeks ago, city council meeting in Jefferson City, and you were talking about your kids, and we all know when we move our kids around, it can be kind of a pain. And you talked about, to make it better, you'd buy them a dog or something, and you still hadn't bought the dog, but they were okay with that. Is that still holding true?
That's still holding true. I keep getting Facebook posts all the time of new dogs that are out there available, but we keep holding out. But my daughter's had a pretty good run with golf of late and qualified for state golf for next week. And I think that's going to have to be some sort of reward. She's working that in now, too.
Holding dad accountable. Bryan McGraw, Superintendent, Jefferson City Schools. We've got about 5 minutes here, so I want to get to it. Number one, let me ask you this. Right now, what is it that you're most proud of that's taking place in the JC school system?
I think the work our teachers do every day and the movement and growth we see with the kids from when we get them at the beginning of the year and move them through the educational process throughout the year. We have advanced placement courses going on throughout the district, the most in the area. We have 31 AP courses and pre-AP courses. Last year we had 260 kids pass advanced placement exams in the district, which was more than double our previous high. And we have over 900 students enrolled in advanced placement classes this year at both high schools, 4 national merit semifinalists, the most of the schools in the area. So we're super proud of the progress we're making each and every day.
All right, our guest this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, Superintendent of the Jefferson City Schools, Bryan McGraw.
Our official position is we're not teaching it. It doesn't get any clearer than that.
All right. I like it. Nice and clear.
Yeah. Superintendent, this is Steve Spellman in Columbia. My mother and my wife as well had experience in the local public school districts. And one thing that I don't think gets talked about in all the political discussion about school funding or school choice and that sort of thing, or school or student achievement scores and all of that, is a lot of kids are coming from we'll just say they got troubles at home, whether it's poverty or there's drug addiction or just a tough situation at their home, and the kids coming to the classroom, the teachers that you're admiring and so forth in your comments, you got kids coming to the classroom that maybe aren't ready to learn. They maybe haven't had a square meal or didn't get enough sleep or support with homework assignments and so forth. What do you see like the face of poverty in your district?
I think, we're teaching the whole child. Not only are we trying to, get their reading scores up and their math scores and have them progress educationally, but also emotionally, and there's a lot of challenges that kids face throughout our district that we have to be prepared to help them. And there could be mental health challenges, challenges in the home, and we're here to assist and make our kids better. At the end of the day, we want to have them college and career ready, but those challenges do exist, and it's in a district, with our demographics, obviously, we're trying to work with children and families each and every day to make their lives better, and it is a significant challenge.
Superintendent, very quick question, and that is about, and we're not that far away, and that is about inclement weather, specifically the snow. Jefferson City has so many hills. I've driven those over the years, especially in the snow. How does it work? What is the process now? And I know you're starting this, but do you get out? It used to be Dr. Kimball and Dr. Straub literally would get out and drive the roads during a storm and determine if it's safe. Do you do that now, or is it someone else? And at what point do you make that call? Because usually I get a call from you guys like 4:30 in the morning, whether or not you have school. How does that work?
We try to get out there as early as possible, and I'll be out on the roads driving. I came from North Pocono in Pennsylvania, Pocono Mountain, so I'm used to, we had a couple storms, 40 inches of snow, so I'm used to a lot of snow, but I'm used to driving roads. I think, we do have challenges when you get out into Callaway County, and we have some, roads that are not paved, and but we'll be out there, try to notify parents sooner rather than later, try to make the call earlier and err on the side of caution, for the safety of our students and staff.
Thank you.
Quick question from a listener. This is from listener Bryant. Career ladder for teachers they implemented this year. Is that going to be permanent, or is this just while it's funded by the state?
Our goal is to, hopefully the state will keep funding it, but our goal is to keep that if our budget allows. But definitely we have over 600 teachers that signed up to participate in the program, so we're really excited about giving them an extra incentive, and hopefully the state will keep that funding going. We appreciate the work of the governor on that.
All right, Bryan McGraw, Superintendent, Jefferson City Schools. You have our phone number, hopefully on your cell phone number. Our phone number here at the studio is 573-874-9390. Mr. McGraw, I'd like for you to keep that handy. If there's ever anything that you need from us, we're kind of like a politician. We're here to serve, man. So if there's ever anything that we can do on behalf of you, parents and students in the Jefferson City School District, I want you to feel free to use that number anytime you want. Short notice. Hey, John. Hey, Brandon, I need some help here. Can you help us out? This is going on. Please feel free to use our phone number, okay?
I appreciate your assistance and service to the community. You have a great show, and hopefully we can stay in touch and in contact from time to time.
All right, Bryan McGraw, Superintendent, Jefferson City School District. Coming up, Morning Bell, business news, little twist. Only Good morning, 8:27, time for the Morning Bell Business News with a little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you. She'll be back here on Monday for GM and other car makers, so we know supply chain issues. We know the cost of cars and what's happened over the past couple of years. I was excited, man. I've got a car. It's almost as old as producer Hannah. My car's old. It doesn't even have.
Did you just say the car is old because it's almost as old as I am?
It's almost well, by today's standards, I bet I drive. What year is your car?
Mine is a 2012.
Yeah, so you drive a newer car than I do. Spellman?
I've got the newest car in the family. It's a 19.
So
we got 13, 08, 11 as the other cars for the kids and my wife.
Yeah. So my car, I bet if you were to come by the Wake Up Mid-Missouri parking lot right now, I bet I've got probably the oldest car in the parking lot, actually. Do you? What year's the Marsh vehicle? Oh, you do. You win. So your car is about as old as Hannah, but did you get excited over the past couple of years? I was like, man, how is all of a sudden the trade-in value and the resale value of my car is going up?
Mine's gone up.
This is good. Oh, but if I want to buy a car to I'm screwed either way.
And by the way, watch your property tax bill because assessed valuations on housing and cars has gone up, and that takes a while to reset. So if you get a surprise that my tax bill went up, well, your rate didn't maybe, but the value of your vehicle or your home maybe did. And that doesn't happen every year. Right? It's a whole thing.
And I hate to bring you down, but bring you down listening right now. But yeah, you're right. Get ready for that because the assessed valuation.
Be aware.
Yeah, it's going to be different.
Different.
Since the tragic events of January the 20th. Of 2021. So shares of automakers Ford and General Motors, they've been taking a beating, especially yesterday. As outlook for the industry as a whole has been darkening further, with at least 2 Wall Street analysts predicting earnings will fall steeply next year. So how will that affect us when we're in the car market? I wish I had an answer for you, but I don't have a crystal ball. You want to venture a guess? End result, when I go to buy a car, how will what happened yesterday on Wall Street with the automakers, how will that affect us? Higher prices? Okay. They're pretty simple. Coming up, Steve Spellman filling in on the show today. Interesting piece coming up in the next few days in the Missourian. Going to talk about that, local elections, and a phenomenal piece in the Jefferson City News Tribune. And this is something probably all of us have encountered at a grocery store. We're going to cover that 5 minutes from now.
Nuclear war isn't the only thing on Biden's mind. He went to Maryland to give a speech about the economy. Here's how that went.
Let me start off with 2 words. Made in America.
I have 2 words for you. What the I'm not
Stephen Colbert on Joe Biden. I have 2 words, made in America. And I wonder sometimes, and I don't want to knock on the guy too much. He's almost 80 years old.
Not too much.
Not too much. But sometimes, and maybe this is going way deep down on the rabbit hole, but I wonder sometimes, when he says these things, when he goes to shake hands of imaginary people and he asks for dead people in the crowd and he says, I have 2 words for you, and says made in America. I wonder sometimes, be for real, like, are they doing this intentionally? Like the rope-a-dope? Hey, y'all, look how stupid and incoherent and aged I am. And then they're going to sucker punch us or something. I really wonder, because you would like to think, and I just, come on, you can't be that.
You can't make it up sometimes.
Yeah, you can't make it up. Like, for real? Are you putting me on? Come on, man. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and I don't know. I think, Brandon, the one thing, and Steve, too, that you can't underestimate President Biden in that we are in an off-year election. So traditionally, the party that is not in the White House does very well, and the Republicans still expect. But if you look at a lot of generic ballots, there are some that show it could go either way. And the fact that the Democrats are even this competitive is just, I'm surprised now. Granted, in Missouri they're not, but nationally there are. But theoretically, based on history, the Democrats should be much further down than they are right now. If you look at history, even Eisenhower, as popular as he was, and he was very popular, although he did not carry Missouri in 56. Eisenhower, as popular as he was in 52 when he won, in 54 the Democrats came back big. So we'll see. Reagan lost seats too.
Well, nationally, there is an information tilt that does favor left-leaning candidates, and there's an optimism there, whether it's factual or a little less than factual, half-truth type thing to. Trump says it's a form of voter suppression. Is one of the things he says in
national press.
Yeah, but he says, "Oh, look, the Democrats, they're going to do better than you. Conservatives don't go vote." Is his opinion and some of others.
Sure.
To your point about the way the national news, and this is always, obviously, it's well documented, the way that, as a matter of fact, it's so well documented. We used to do features on it because I love watching national news outlets and the way they frame and posit stories, and we'd love to sit here and go, well, that's BS. It became an old hat because it was so common. They just quit doing it. But to your point, for example, and I think this is kind of a big deal, and I want to go to our one of our news. How cool is that? Wake Up Mid-Missouri has 2 news directors, Mr. John Marsh and Brian Hausworth. How blessed are we, really?
Very
Can we
fortunate.
give both of these guys a round of applause? But I think when you have one of the most prominent names in the Democrat Party who ran for president just a few years ago drop out of the Democrat Party, as happened today, I think it's kind of a big deal. Maybe not completely unexpected, but to go onto Twitter and eviscerate, I mean, she laid into the Democrat Party. And I get on, it's Tulsi Gabbard, by the way. I think it's a big deal, but I think even the bigger deal, there's nothing on the front page of the websites I'm talking now. There's nothing on CNN.com. There's nothing on USAtoday.com. Right now, there's nothing on MSNBC.com. Now, I happen to think that is kind of a big deal. You have a Democrat who just a few years ago ran for president. She's leaving your party, and she's calling out your BS, but those news outlets aren't touching it, I think, because that is negative news for the Democrat Party.
John, you want to go first? Because I definitely I have
Brian's sharpening his knife here.
I've got some thoughts. Yeah. Which is an interesting point. I'm glad you brought up Chris Koster, because he had been elected as a state senator from a very Republican seat, Harrisonville, I believe is where he was from, at Clay County, and then obviously a lot of people didn't think that he would win Attorney General, but he did, and was elected to 2 terms. So good comparison there. But to Branden's point, I absolutely agree with Branden in that it's news. Tulsi Gabbard, a U.S. congressperson of that prominence, leaving the Democratic Party, her leaving and her criticism of her own party. Of course, they're firing back at her. The base is really hammering her on Twitter as well. But the reality is that is news. It's certainly national news. I'd say the same thing if it were a Republican who ran for president. If it was a Republican who ran for president and was switching or leaving the Republican Party, I would tend to think that Rachel Maddow and these folks, MSNBC, CNN, I'm sure they'd be covering it. But when Tulsi Gabbard does, it's not being covered, and it should be. It is absolutely, and both of them would be news. And when James Jeffords, if you remember James Jeffords from Vermont, he was a senator, didn't run for president, but a big name. He switched parties. I think he became an independent, but caucused with the Democrats. It was news, and it should have been. Maybe it got more coverage because, as I recall, it flipped control from Lott to Daschle. I'm going off of memory on that. It was very, very, maybe a year, but boy, that was a big deal, and it should have been. But this is a big deal too, and it should be covered in the national press.
I think it's an old Mark Twain quote that if you don't read the papers, you're uninformed. If you do read the papers, you're misinformed. Now, that's kind of quippy. No offense to the professional journalists, John and Brian here, but the stories that are there that seem tilted, but also it's the story selection. What isn't a story? Yep. And this is not a story. The Hunter Biden laptop is the epitome of that. Wasn't a story. Well, that seems like a story. Like there's some important connections. And then later on, things changed and then it was a story now. Well, it wasn't a story then. So, are we getting the full story? If you watch MSNBC, CNN, you're getting obviously tilt, but it's more subtle than that. It's a deeper topic.
And so I find it interesting that right now, so you have a Democrat who ran for president, and it's not on CNN, not on USA Today, to your point about this tilt and stories that aren't because it looks bad, and the CNN and the USA Today's are protecting them. And this Hunter Biden stuff, the Washington Post, Russian disinformation, and a bunch of folks said, well, who cares? Listen, I don't care that Hunter Biden was doing hookers and blow. That's not the point. The point was the ties to his dad and national news outlets.
The big guy
had the means and the capability to really investigate this, and they didn't do it. Now, you're tied into the media.
As an amateur basis.
Right.
I'm sensitive to these topics.
Right.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, you have a piece coming out in the Missourian in the next couple of days. What's the focus? And by the way, when you read the Missourian, a lot of times Steve Spellman has couple times a month, really some great thought-provoking locally. They have a slant to them. It's local. That's the
try to contribute to the public discussion, and I think the editors there find value in a, quote-unquote conservative point of view. I think that's what voters are looking for. Hopefully it adds value to some readers. It pisses off some readers, and some people I hear good comments. But basically it's about some of the November elections, and the national news is going to cover, Fox News is going to cover U.S. Senate. And really, frankly, in Missouri, it's so red at large. U.S. Senate race was determined in August. I mean, it's Eric Schmidt, unless there's some lightning strike
or an October surprise.
Yeah, it'd have to be a pretty big deal. For Congress, Blaine Luetkemeyer is probably going to be, the incumbent. Mark Alford is a Republican in the 4th District. In Boone County, anyway, that I kind of look at, we've got 5 state House districts. Those are all redrawn. By the way, wherever you live and you're not sure what district or how it's drawn, go to the Secretary of State website. They've got a nice map, and it can kind of see where you're at and where those lines are at, what district you're in, and maybe some ones next door and so forth. But we got a couple gimme districts in the city of Columbia that are Democrat that are running unopposed, which is a good indicator of that. David Tyson Smith is unopposed. He's the incumbent. He'll get reelected. Was it Kathy Steinhoff? Is the other in the other district unopposed. She's the former director of the local teachers union, so you can imagine some of the topics she's talking about. Cherie Tolson Rice does have an opponent, But her district is, you couldn't draw it more favorable for her, probably. Just saying. She expects openly to win 2-1. So
last night, fundraiser for Dustin Stanton, county treasurer appointed by our governor, Mike Parson, running for election. Cherie Tolson-Reich last night got up and said something I thought it was really, really cool, because there were some other candidates in this room in Hallsville last night, and she said, "I'm asking you not to give me money." She says, "If you want to donate to my campaign, please donate to people like Dustin Stanton." Shimon Jones is having a fundraiser tonight. She's running for Recorder of Deeds. Before we move forward, we're running out of show here, man. We need a longer show here. Gary Nolan's coming up, my dad's favorite show. Saw this in the Jefferson City News Tribune. And so the whole piece really, John, it's not really about, because we all see this at the grocery store, but there's a guy by the name of Joshua Peterson, and he's professor of humanities at Boston University. But Jefferson City News Tribune picked up his piece, and it deals with effective altruism. And basically it says, okay, you want to donate time. This is a concept I'm guessing that you're pretty familiar with.
Yeah.
And what he says, he mentions, and it's not the point of the article, but it's my perception, and perception is reality, or at least my perception is my reality. He doesn't make it reality, but it's my reality. But he mentions in this article about, like, when you go through the cashier at the grocery store, and before you're entering all the stuff and holding up the line, you're entering your rewards number and your PIN number and this and that, and then you think you're almost done, and then comes question number 87 that says, "Would you like to round up?" No! I mean, yes, I do, but no.
We assume it's for something nice. We assume those dollars are going to something responsible, and it's actually helping, a poor kid or animals or what have you. But, I think part of the piece I kind of perused that you're pointing to is in the News Tribune there the other day, today, I guess, but just the other day. Basically, it's kind of responsibility of the giver to kind of know what that's going for. And so the giver kind of has a responsibility too. And there's a lot of good charities. Some get vetted by whether it's a United Way or Friends and Family. There's national websites that rate these charities quite often. And so, a buck or two to something, that might help. Might help in a panhandler on the street. Former city councilman Mike Trapp, who was no right-winger by any stretch, said, basically you're giving $1 to panhandler, you might be kind of keeping along an addiction of theirs. That might be going to the liquor store. It might be kind of keeping them in that. So they maybe need something different. I mean, you give them a gift card to Hardee's. Well, that's one strategy. But, dollars to some charity that you haven't really looked into, you assume is good, but you don't know.
And who's going to be the person who's going to stand there in the checkout line and go, I would like to donate to this charity, but let me research it. Hold on, everybody. I know the line is backed up. It's 5 o'clock on a Friday.
Ask the cashier to explain it. Yeah.
Coming up here, we're going to open up the fridge and get in to see what we've got in the way of leftovers before.
Here's a big old serving of leftovers on 93.9 The Eagle. Enjoy.
All right, let's open up the refrigerator, see what we've got in the way of leftovers. I love this. You know, when you're at your house and you open up your fridge and you're, what's in here? And sometimes you get surprised because there's like some leftover grandma's chocolate chip cookies, and other times not. I do want to something we didn't mention. ABC 17 talking about cost special legislative session. Remember the special legislative session that happened a couple weeks ago came to an end last week. We pay those lawmakers a per diem. We pay them, what is it, $130, $134 a day? I don't know, something like that. About $126,000 for the Missouri House. David Tyson Smith. And I personally like David Tyson Smith. I had a really cool dealing with him whenever we were talking about pulling the mural out of the Boone County Courthouse, and we took that offensive thing out and put in a jar of dirt. But anyhow, David Tyson Smith, I still will never understand that. David Tyson Smith had a really cool encounter. There was what I'm going to stereotype, some drunk, maybe a homeless dude was outside of the courthouses. We're all pouring in for this hearing, and this guy started approaching David Tyson Smith, and David Tyson Smith took the time and talked to this guy. I thought it was just a very human,
personable fellow,
personable thing to do. We've had some differences. He called State Representative Chuck Basie a liar, and I asked him for clarification one time. I said, what did he lie about? And he couldn't answer the question. Political speak, but he was talking about the cost for the special legislative session, $126,000. Steve, anything in your refrigerator before we get ready?
Yeah.
By the way, Jen Bukowski. Now my dad is really excited.
Jen's in the house.
Yeah, Jen's in for Gary Nolan today. My dad's super stoked for the Jen Bukowski show.
Get geared up here, but a lot of talk about some of the candidates on the November ballot and so forth. But there's a number of ballot initiatives too, and several constitutional amendments. The one on marijuana is getting a lot of attention. Complex issue there. There's one about the National Guard, kind of changing the organization of that. I don't think that's getting a lot of attention now, so that's something I'm digging into.
Amendment 5, regarding the National Guard.
I heard the first thing about that last week, and actually talked to a National Guardsman, a young guy, some weeks ago. I said, there's something on there. He's like, I don't know what that is. Okay. So I guess we'll learn about that. I'll be speaking at the Columbia Pachyderm Club in a couple weeks on October 21st. That's noon at Dickey's Barbecue. Their own forum in Columbia. And then some folks from the Concerned Women of America, if you're familiar with that group.
Yeah, I gave a presentation to them last year.
They're real nice.
Yeah.
So I'll be going out there in next Monday, I guess, and talk to them, and I'll be writing something in the Missouri in a couple weeks. So,
and you'll have something coming out in the Missouri.
Yes, if you want to chat about that. I don't think there's a lot of awareness about those. Hopefully, voters will learn more about them coming up. But I tend to vote no on those because sometimes there's a special interest, but sometimes there's a good one. So, helping voters that care, concerned citizens like the listeners here. I'm just trying to add value and some information there.
March 15th.